What's up, everybody? Ryan Thomas, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Coming to you live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, as I said, and delivered you, the people, a quality 15-minute edition, part one of tonight's show. And I'm not really feeling too good. Allergies are kind of acting funny. Throat's feeling a little weird. It's that time of year in One Buffalo, New York, where not everybody's 100%. That's for sure. Due to the fact that the weather and just everything, it's tough. You got your heat on all the time. You're trying to stay warm. Your house gets a little dry, and then your nose gets dry. Your throat gets dry. Got to stay hydrated. That's the key. Got to stay hydrated with water. Stay hydrated on fluids. And that's another tough part for Buffalonians to do. We typically don't drink water. We drink beer, and we enjoy our Buffalo sports, which provides me with a segue here to talk about my next topic of discussion on the podcast. Ryan Miller becoming the winningest U.S.-born goalie in National Hockey League history. 375, I believe, with a wins total for Ryan Miller. And I got to say, it couldn't happen to a better individual. Ryan Miller has been a true role model for those that really have aspired to become hockey players, or even just as a professional. You know, in a professional sense, he has been a fantastic individual. The guy has bounced around from team to team after his Sabres tenure and has made the most of each stop along the way. And I remember, probably 2000, to take you back here, 2004, 2005, 2005, I believe it was where I really started to see Ryan Miller and say to myself, who the heck is this guy? And he had a great season down in Rochester. Prior to that, broke a lot of single-season records as the goalie of the Rochester Americans, which is obviously the farm team of the Buffalo Sabres. And you knew it was only a matter of time before he was going to break through. He had a fantastic career at Michigan State and was a true MVP caliber player in college, and then does what he did in Rochester and then gets brought up to be the goalie of the Buffalo Sabres. And to really dive into Ryan Miller, it's very tough to really put into words how impactful of a player I think he has been in the National Hockey League the last, almost 20 years now. At age 38, playing for the Anaheim Ducks, returning to the lineup after 2 months out, essentially, as the former 138th overall draft choice in the 1999 NHL draft, being a player that was selected to play for the United States in the 2010 Winter Olympics as the team's starting goaltender, virtually standing on his head throughout that entire Olympic run, and winning that silver medal, and was the most valuable player of that tournament. And then also competing in the 2014 Winter Olympics. One of 30 goaltenders in NHL history to win 300 games. And one dynamic that I look at when I look at the accomplishments of Ryan Miller, it really, really brought a whole new light to Ryan Miller's career with the Buffalo Sabres. And I have to find the statistic here. Have to give credit to the statistic here. I know I'll find it. Just give me a minute. I have it written down here. I'm just skimming through my notes. But obviously, I'm very excited for the fact that this guy is still playing. I'm very pumped up about it. But basically, the statistic was something to the tune of he had reached a winning milestone that Dominic Hasek had reached while the goaltender, while in the midst of his goaltending career, Hasek achieved this milestone in 9 years. Ryan Miller achieved this milestone in 6 years. Obviously, Miller actually did play on better overall teams than Hasek did, but I think that's truly astounding, the fact that Miller achieved a career milestone 3 years sooner than Dominic Hasek. He's less than 20 wins away from eclipsing Dominic Hasek's wins total for Hasek's career. And their careers are going to be often compared, and I'm not going to make a habit of doing that in this particular podcast, but I definitely think Hasek had his own. I think the guy could ultimately be considered the greatest goaltender of all time. So I'm comparing Dominic Hasek to Ryan Miller. I'm putting Ryan Miller as well in elite company, but I'm more so comparing the two because they played for the Buffalo Sabres. And the fact is that Ryan Miller was able to achieve quite a lot as the goaltender of the Buffalo Sabres. Did a lot of things that most people really don't notice, a lot of things that somewhat got lost in the shuffle, how truly great he really was as the goaltender of the Buffalo Sabres for all those years that he was here. And to take you back to the moment where he was traded, I was pretty upset. I was kind of at the end of my rope with the Buffalo Sabres at that time. Thought to myself, this is the last guy I want to see play on another team. I said that with Pominville, said that with Vanek, said that with all the players that they've sent packing. Pominville, I think, was after that. Regardless, all the players that they sent packing, Brian Campbell, Briere, Jury, Ryan Miller, for me, it was the worst of the worst because I really felt like he wanted to play here his entire career. And granted, I know Danny Briere and Chris Jury wanted to finish their careers here as well. But Ryan Miller was he was the heartbeat, he was the backbone, he was the quintessential face of the team in goal in the crease for such a long time. So to know that, Buffalo was truly tanking at the time lent itself to just complete and total disappointment on my end as a Buffalo Sabres fan. Knowing that we traded him to the St. Louis Blues and ultimately realizing what that return eventually got us. Yaroslav Halak, Chris Stewart, William Carrier, and 2 future draft picks. Those future draft picks, I believe, were eventually used on players, but it just was not a good feeling. And the moment that they traded Ryan Miller, they also traded Steve Ott as well, who was a highly regarded player for the Sabres for his grit, for his tenacity, and all those things that Buffalo fans know and love about their fan favorites. So I'm very thankful for Ryan Miller's time here. In hindsight, I didn't want him gone then. I didn't want him gone now. I've really missed watching him in the crease wearing the blue and gold, and now I've realized something else. Bear with me here, folks, but I want Ryan Miller back. I want to see Ryan Miller back in blue and gold. Call me crazy, call it out of line, call it over the top, whatever you want, but just me being a major Ryan Miller fan, following his career after the Sabres, obviously during the Sabres tenure, during the Sabres run, putting the team on his back essentially, despite how talented that team was. There were a lot of 1-0, 2-1, 3-1 games where he played very well. And then as the seasons wore on and the team around him got worse, he really started stepping it up, and that Olympic performance was something I haven't seen before or since from Ryan Miller, from any goaltender in the Olympics. So credit to him. I think he's the best American-born goalie that there's ever been, and I think his career will speak to that as his career continues. And I don't know if this is his last season in the National Hockey League, but he's 38. Hasek was a goaltender into his mid-40s, whether it was in the NHL or not. And maybe Ryan Miller can continue to play. I mean, who's to say that he isn't a quality backup in this league? Who's to say that he can't win you let's just say 10 to 12 games a year. I definitely think he could. And I think if he were to come back to Buffalo Sabres fans would be doing backflips. This is where he's belonged his entire career. This is where he should have started and finished his entire career. I understand that the sport of hockey is a business just like all the other sports. But really, to me, that was the first sign that the Buffalo Sabres were about to embark on a treacherous, terrible run when they decided to trade Ryan Miller. I thought if they could trade this guy, they'll trade anyone. So, really, his emotions during the Milan Lucic incident where Lucic went after him and Ryan Miller really called him out and said that he was a piece of shit and said that he had, 40 pounds on him and it was chicken shit and everything. I love that. I really love that. And I thought that was pretty honorable for him to just be so forthcoming and basically say what was on everybody's mind already, that Milan Lucic was, quote unquote, a piece of shit. His words, not mine, but I do concur. I do agree. So, Ryan Miller, in my opinion, best U.S. born goalie ever. I know people can take it for what it's worth, but he's the best I've ever seen. And I say that when I talk about all-time great debates. I say, of all the players I've seen, I'm only going to go with what I've seen. And people kind of say, well, that's a little crazy. No, it's kind of not. Wouldn't you want to hear my opinion on who's the greatest that I've ever seen? That would be Ryan Miller, or the greatest that I ever saw, I guess I could say. Tom Brady, greatest U.S. born goaltender. Ryan Miller, greatest, not American goaltender. Dominic Hasek to me. And they both played for the Buffalo Sabres, and they're both very close to getting Stanley Cup championships here in Buffalo. So, on a depressing note, now the Sabres are a mess, and it's been a pretty crazy run. And we'll get into that. No doubt about it. We will get into that live tonight on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas. Do not change the station. We'll be back for another edition of the episodes of the podcast. Tune in. Let's go Buffalo. Ryan Miller, congrats, buddy.